Have you ever wondered why there's so many different dialects of Arabic? Or have you ever been wanting to learn Arabic and been faced with which dialect you should learn? Today we're going to jump into talking about some of the different dialects of Arabic, the three choices that I was choosing between when it came to my own personal studies, and which one you should choose as you dive into the fascinating and beautiful world of Arabic and the Arabic language. So, to understand the different Arabic dialects, I think it's important to understand a little bit of the history. Arabic spread as a language is very, very intimately linked with the spread of Islam in the 7th century. When Muhammad and his followers began their conquests, the Arabic language was spread all across the Middle East, stretching from North Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, into the Middle East, and even parts of Asia and Persia. The Umayyad Caliphate, based in Damascus, played a huge role in spreading Arabic across the Middle East and North Africa. Right? And later, the Abbasid Caliphate expanded Arabic even more, establishing Baghdad as the cultural and intellectual hub of the Arabic-speaking world. And as Arabic traveled, much like any other language, it blended with a variety of native and indigenous languages to form its own unique mixture. And in this way, it gave birth to these different regional dialects, which you can see nowadays. And Arabic is actually kind of fascinating. Standard Arabic is basically undergoing what Latin did all the way back then when it became French and Portuguese and Italian and Spanish and all the others, where the written language is the same, but the way in which it's pronounced from country to country can vary quite significantly, right? And in fact, this is now a huge debate currently of whether certain Arabic dialects should be considered dialects or completely separate languages. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below what you think, if Arabic should be considered one language or if it should be broken up into different languages based on mutual intelligibility. And so over the time, different Islamic empires like the Ottomans, the Fatimids, and the Mamluks spread Arabic throughout the Mediterranean, creating distinct dialects in each region, which evolved over the centuries influenced by trade, local languages, invasions, and cultural exchange. And so for me, when I first started learning Arabic, I brought it down to three groups, right? So when it comes to Arabic, with Arabic, a variety of different dialects, which have varying levels of mutual intelligibility, right? So you have like the North African, which include Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, which were hugely influenced by Spanish and French, as well as the native Berber languages. Then you have like Libyan and Egyptian Arabic, which was influenced in a way by Optics. Then you have like the Levant, which is like Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, which all kind of are pretty much country to country. And then you've got the Gulf region, which is like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, right? And then you have a couple that are just unique and rare, and unless you're going to live and visit in those countries, you don't really need to learn them, which is like Omani and Iraqi. And so for me, it came down to the choice between Maghrebi, Egyptian, and Levantine, right? And so my initial inspiration to learn Arabic was a trip I took to Morocco, and I really, really like Morocco. I want to go back, right? But when it came to actually learning the language, for me, I didn't feel like it was the right choice because it's just not mutually intelligible enough, right? A lot of Arabic speakers find that they can go to Morocco and make themselves understood, but when they listen to Maghrebi speakers from Morocco or wherever, they oftentimes struggle to understand them, right? And so for me, I was like, even though I like Morocco, there's also other spots in these different countries that I want to go around and visit and see and get to know. So I want a more easy to understand for the majority of people dialect, right? Because when I'm in Morocco, I can always learn how to and figure out how to like Maghrebi it up, like I've done with my Spanish, right? Where I learned like a general dialect and now have a base of like Mexican Spanish, right? So I can then change a little bit and modify if I go to Argentina or if I go to Chile or if I go to the Dominican Republic, right? Same thing here, right? I wanted a dialect that was a little bit easier to understand, right? So that's what led me to investigate into the Egyptian Arabic. There's a lot of resources to help you learn this language, which was a big draw for me. It's also well known as like a place for music, a place for like film and dramas and like that. So it has a lot of materials to learn and study with, right? However, I didn't like after listening to a few clips of the audio, I didn't really like how it sounded, right? And that's what led to me picking like the Levantine dialect. One, I was able to find enough resources to make learning it easy enough. I then later found more resources that were aimed directly at with lingualism, the Levantine dialect, right? It's also a place known, specifically Lebanon, for like film and music and culture. So it's been a lot of people throughout the Arabic-speaking world have exposure to this dialect. So I figured it would be understandable if I wanted to travel around, right? And then also the idea being that if I go to a country, I'm going to learn their slang. I'm going to learn a little bit about some of their cultural references. And I'm going to learn some of the key differences in like maybe pronunciation and how to change that Levantine dialect to make it more understandable to the Egyptians or to the Jordanians or to, if I go to, or wherever I go, Morocco, Tunisia, right? Just like I have done with my Spanish and Arabic speakers do with their Arabic all the time. So like for me, one of the reasons I chose not to go after the Egyptian dialect of Arabic was the fact that the j sound, like in Jamil, which is beautiful, is pronounced g, Jamil. I don't know, I thought it was pretty ugly, right? But because I studied it for a little bit at the beginning, I do remember some more Arabic words, right? Like Izayak is how are you versus Kifak in Levantine Arabic. It's also a little bit faster, and so I found it a little bit harder to understand. It didn't have that like smooth, sing-songy sound Levantine Arabic does. Right? It also tends Levantine Arabic the qaf to be just gotten rid of. It is replaced with just like a stop, right? So words like qamar becomes ammar, the moon, right? A little bit easier. Also, because Levantine Arabic was hugely influenced by French, there's a lot of words that have come from that, especially the Lebanese type. And so I figured that if I go travel there, Lebanon's higher on the list, I'll be able to rely a little bit on French, just as I'll be able to if I go to Morocco again. But Morocco is the most distinct. It has a lot of influence from other languages. It uses a lot of loan words from Spanish and French and Italian, depending on where you're at. And it also has a ton of influence from the Berber languages that were spoken by the natives already there, right? Which makes it a lot harder to understand, and it's also much, much faster. And it's listening to Chilean Spanish, but in Arabic, right? And of course, as my language learning journey with Arabic has continued to evolve, I have had to work in more like MSA Arabic, one, to just improve vocabulary, but also to get access to more media, right? From news or podcasts to being able to read books or listen to cartoons, right? I've found that I need that exposure to the more formal style of the language in order to continue to make progress. While still thinking in my mind, I want to follow along with the pronunciation differences of that I know exist in Levantine Arabic. So how do you choose which dialect to learn? Well, I think it comes down to what are your goals. Do you have a country that you really like? Well, maybe you lean towards that, right? For me, I didn't want to go that route because I also want to visit other Arabic countries like Oman, the UAE, Jordan, or Egypt. So I want to be able to have a dialect that is more adaptable, right? But if you're going to be spending a lot of time in one part of the world for work or for pleasure, you should probably focus on that dialect, right? I definitely wouldn't say that starting with MSA is the way to go. That's essentially like learning how to speak like Shakespeare and then expecting people not to laugh when you speak, right? Pick a dialect to go with it, right? And learn how to adapt it based on where you're at. At the end of the day, the best dialect for you is going to be the one that you enjoy most, the one that sounds the most pleasing to you, and the one that makes you excited to learn the language, right? I could have probably learned the Maghrebi dialect or the Egyptian dialect, but I didn't like it as much, and so I wouldn't have been as motivated to learn as I was with learning the Levantine, which is much simpler in a lot of ways and sounds a lot better, in my opinion. Remember, it doesn't matter what dialect you start with, as you evolve in the language and as your situation evolves and you go to different places, you can always choose to modify a little bit and learn how to modify that dialect to be better understood in other places and start to pick up more of a Maghrebi or whatever influence. Thank you guys for watching. If this video was interesting, be sure to like, subscribe, leave any comments down below. If you want to join a Spanish class, be sure to send me an email using the contact information below. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. See you in the next video.